Welcome back to your weekly Youthgevity tip with Tracy. This is the second part in my series on sleep. Now, last week I gave you 7 tips for a good night's sleep. This week I'm moving east to traditional Chinese medicine and something called the organ clock that may help explain why some of you are still tossing and turning at night. According to Eastern medicine, our body has a 24-hour clock and our organs operate optimally at specific times during this 24-hour period. Not only are they doing their physiological work, but there is also an emotional component, and that's what we're going to look at today. Because if you are waking up at the same time every night, it may be your body trying to send you a message. So in order to decode that message, I have created an organ clock. Now you can see my volunteer here was a troubled sleeper. That's why he's got the dark circles around his eyes. But at any rate, our organ clock begins at the hours between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. That's when you're trying to get to sleep. And you should be, because remember, those hours before midnight have double the value of the hours after midnight. But if you find yourself unable to get to sleep, it may be because of this tiny little gland here that sits on top of the kidney. This is called your adrenal gland. And it produces cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Now, cortisol energizes the body in order to give it the energy it needs to deal with the stress. So here's how it goes. You lay down at night to go to sleep, and all the things that stress you out start to flood your mind. Now, some people describe this as getting a second wind, but the truth is it's taking the wind out of your sails. So if you want to drift off into a more peaceful sleep, I recommend starting a journal and each night jotting down things that bring you joy or that make you feel grateful. Okay, moving on. From the hours of 11 to 1, it is all about the gallbladder. That is this little tiny pear-shaped organ right beneath the liver. Now, the gallbladder is responsible for digestion. It produces bile that help to emulsify the fats. But the gallbladder also has an emotional message for you. So if you're waking up between the hours of 11 and 1, it may be that your body is trying to talk to you about your self-esteem, and in particular about your indecisiveness. Maybe you don't trust yourself, or maybe you haven't been listening to your intuition. I recommend a few self-affirming mantras before you go to bed each night and let that settle into your subconscious. All right, moving on. From 1 to 3, the liver takes over. Now, the liver performs over 500 bodily functions, but at night, it's concerned with detoxing. Obviously, it's detoxing the body, but also our mental body, and that has to deal with negative emotions, in particular, the negative emotions of fear and frustration and anger. Remember, fear is at the base of anger. Now, for a lot of us, we don't even know what we're angry about, but the liver is trying to tell you, if you're waking up between these hours, there is something going on. So I recommend getting rid of those negative emotions during the day, and nothing is better for that than daily doses of exercise. Okay, then we move on to the hours of 3 and 5, and the lungs take over. The lungs are in charge of the respiratory system and your immune system, but the lungs also regulate grief and sadness. So if you are waking up between the hours of 3 and 5 and not able to get to sleep, it might be that your body is telling you you need a good cry. Or maybe there is something in your life that is not yet complete and you need to go back and emotionally complete the circle. Either way, a good exercise is to breathe through it. So I recommend before you go to bed, do a little 4-square breathing, and that goes like this. You hold one nostril down, breathe in to the count of 10, hold to the count of 10, switch nostrils, breathe out to the count of 10, hold to the count of 10, and repeat the cycle 3 to 4 times before bed. Okay, so there you have it. That is our organ clock. It's time for you now to start keeping track of what your body is trying to say to you during your sleep. That's my tips for this week. Until we meet again next week, live young.